Hello peeps, this video is a sort of request, but more something I think I should have covered by now as basic Trek lore. The function and layout of your standard Starfleet Bridge, the command hub of a starship. This design style has seen little variation over time, so I'll focus on a couple of layouts in the basics. Beginning with the centre, the captain's chair. From here, the captain has a view of the majority of the bridge and stations, the Constitution-class vessels placing this feature as a priority by having the captain's chair on a swivel and unobstructed sightlines to the rest of the bridge. Later ships would forego this open-plan layout in favour of shifting the tactical console and accompanying chairs for other senior staff. The captain's chair has a readout that can provide a summary of most of the ship's functions and access to all systems. The only limit here is simply the size of the interface, being no bigger than an armrest. Ships like the Galaxy class have additional screens in positions for the first officer and specialist stations. At the front of the bridge is the Helm. This is because it has the best view of the view screen, or window, and seems an instinctual place to position such a station. For the majority of the time, the vessel will be moving forwards after all, but with view screens and inertial dampeners, does it really matter? In ships such as the old NX Enterprise, as well as later vessels like the Intrepid or Defiant class, well, they had only the helm at the front of the ship, while many others coupled the helm with another station, usually an operations or navigation based one. Generally, a vessel with only a helm at the fore had this station because it was expected to do a lot of manoeuvring or was built for rapid flight. The NX-01 was a prototype warp vessel, the Intrepid class was a rapid deep space vessel, and the Defiant was a highly agile combat ship. Compare this to the Galaxy, Sovereign and Excelsior classes, which were all larger, slower, but more versatile cruisers with multiple mission profiles. On these vessels, the operations station was typically located next to the helm. This was the ship's eyes and ears, both external and internal. Readouts for the ship's vitals and systems were channeled to this console, providing the ops officer with status reports as well as the primary control for sensor readings. When not next to the helm, well, it could really be anywhere, but the functions are the same. Bridges also included a tactical and security console that maintained control over the ship's defense systems and internal security, as well as targeting scanners. This is one of those stations that's the location of changed depending on the vessel. Sometimes it was its own station, other times it was built into the operations console. It was much the same with communications. Again, it was originally its own station, or built into the general ship's operations with later era vessels. Most vessels retained an engineering console for the bridge, where an engineering team officer would man the station and observe and relay important information to the bridge crew. Most vessels, however, preferred to keep their chief of engineering and engineering control down in those sections of the vessel, where there was simply more space and access to the complex machinery to run the engines. If desired though, most controls could be run as proxy through a bridge terminal, but frequently an engineer is just going to need to roll up their sleeves and get stuck into the actual components of a vessel. So this is more of an observation post. The science station was often behind and to the captain's chair's right. This was generally only present on ships that had a designated chief science officer, which is the majority of vessels, although the Intrepid and Galaxy are notable exceptions. Nevertheless, even these vessels retained a science-based console despite lacking the position. The science station in these cases had control over numerous sensor arrays and ship systems, direct library access, and depending on the mission profile for the ship, would sometimes be the primary sensor station. This is where I'd like to mention the versatility of the Starship Bridge and how it has become more adaptable with time. In the 2200s through to the early 2300s, Starfleet vessels were rather rigid in their positioning of a vessel's console stations. This was due to a limitation of the technology of the time. While stations could be configured and slightly adjusted to better suit an operator's preference, many had fixed installations. looking at the Constitution class or any of its variations as an example. The science station had a viewscope and numerous monitors tied to the ship's main library, and the communications station had the paired earpiece. These stations were for a specific purpose and could not be altered, but when LCARS was introduced, things changed. The LCARS computer interface is basically the operating system and user interface for Federation tech and is incredibly customizable. The Galaxy class was probably the first type of vessel to truly embrace the adaptability it brought, with its array of stations at the rear of the bridge. These stations were 100% changeable and displayed whatever system layouts had been saved. The chief engineer could request one of the 5 alcoves to become an engineering station, or one could be converted into a specific research terminal for a particular topic. The other consoles around the bridge, despite their tradition-inspired locations, could also have their systems swapped over. The last feature that I want to mention is actually not on the bridge, but few vessels do without one: the situation room or briefing room. This chamber is simply a meeting point for the senior staff to discuss matters in private. Its proximity to the bridge means that the crew can quickly and easily return to their stations without much delay, and it is in these areas that the majority of ships' decisions are made. Even vessels that lack these rooms, such as the early NX and Defiant, have an area reserved for discussion, where tactical information or presentations can be brought up. All in all, the standard Starfleet Bridge has evolved over time and become ever more versatile. Ships are designed to fulfill differing roles too, so the complexity and space dedicated to these also varies with vessel class. This has also led to the incorporation of several stations into one over time, most notable the folding of communications into operations, and the sensor systems being split among all the positions really. Telemetry is broken up, I guess, and sent to the most relevant station. In general, the captain can draw up details of a specific station to analyse, but overall it is the specialist stations that need to interpret the data and relay it to the person in the command chair, leading to the smoothest possible operation of the entire vessel from what is effectively the ship's brain. Look, they even put the brain at the very top exposed position of the ship, just like a real one. Now that's a dedication to beheadication. Yes, shields are a thing, but burying it would still be smarter. Not even for combat, just in case, you know. Now well, it looks cool, and it allows for a good view. Thanks for scanning this video with your own sensor systems and interpreting the information with your own skull bridge. I've been Rick, and I'll see you again later.